the government announcement this week that physical church gatherings will be possible from the 4th of July, we wanted to offer an update as to where we are as a church, Elim Christian Centre Glossop. The decision to lock down was a difficult one, and the idea of completely stopping our physical gatherings and moving totally online was inconceivable a few months ago. However, if the decision to lock down was difficult, the decision to reopen physical gatherings while COVID-19 is still present in society is one of the most complex decisions we will face for many years to come. So I want to guide us through the decision-making process, the values and principles that will guide our decisions, and the decisions that we've currently made. The wise Mick Price, one of our elders here, said, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." And that's what we want to do. We want to break this down into manageable steps. So here's our first bite of the elephant. First of all, our decision-making process is we have a traffic light system. The red light is when the government gives the go-ahead for physical gatherings in England for churches. That's happening on the 4th of July, but that is still a red light for us. Amber is when our national leadership team within Elim gives express permission for Elim Christian Centre Glossop to begin meeting together physically again. The green light is when we as an eldership say that we are now ready to meet together physically again. So at the moment, we are still at the red light situation. Before we go on to any decisions, I now want to explain our rationale behind the decisions that we are making. This is important because as a leadership, we care deeply about transparency, accountability, and vulnerability. And we want to do our best to uphold those values. We also want to make our decisions based on the principles of the kingdom of heaven. So we have seven principles that are guiding our thoughts and prayers as we seek to make wise decisions in this season. Principle number 1, we will show a bias towards the vulnerable in our decision making. In Matthew 25, verse 31 to 46, Jesus clearly states, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me." He is particularly speaking about the marginalized and the vulnerable. How we treat them is a direct reflection of our love toward him. There are many other scriptures I could have quoted that speaks about God's heart towards the poor, the marginalized, the oppressed, and the vulnerable. I could go on. Psalm 82 verse 3, James 1:27, Amos 5, the list is endless. But let me state clearly, the quality of our community will be measured by the level of our concern and practical care for the vulnerable among us. We do not want to make any decisions that will marginalize or exclude the vulnerable from our church family. Principle number 2, we will be subject to the governing authorities. We will seek to honour and respect the government as long as it does not conflict with our call to honour and submit to Jesus. Romans 13 states clearly, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities." It must be said that there is a place for resistance. The apostles resisted the command of the authorities not to preach the gospel in Acts, but they did submit to the consequences of their resistance. This, however, is not like Acts. Acts was a moment where the church was under persecution. This is a moment of protection. As such, we will seek to honour and respect the government guidance. Principle number 3, we will not be driven by self-interest. Philippians 2 verse 4 says, "Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others." Our personal desire to gather together is important, but it does not supersede our call to love our neighbour and to care for the vulnerable. As such, it cannot be the driving force behind the decision to gather together physically. Principle number 4, gathering physically matters. Hebrews 10:25 says, "Let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do." We will prioritize meeting together, and we believe that while online gathering has been a gift to us during this season, physical gatherings are absolutely important, and we do not want to dilute their value and importance. We don't want to dilute the significance of being together, worshipping God, enjoying His goodness, and receiving ministry from Him together in one place. It matters. Principle number 5, every church member matters. Acts 20 verse 28 says, "Pay careful attention to yourselves and to all the flock in which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers, to care for the church of God, which He obtained with His own blood." We recognize the sacred responsibility entrusted to us as the leadership of this church, that each and every one of you are sacred to God. And as such, we will be taking our time to make the best decision possible for the entire flock. Principle number 6, risk is valuable, recklessness is wasteful. As followers of Jesus, we are not called to a life of safety and comfort. Risk is something that should not be avoided, but at times embraced as a real part of Jesus' way. Life with Him involves steps of faith. It's an adventure continually stretching us to trust God more fully with the things that matter most. However, trust in God doesn't mean that we start needlessly dancing on cliff edges. We don't honour God by taking unnecessary risks with the lives that He's given us. Just look at the final temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. Luke 4 verse 12, it is said, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." So we want to advocate for taking risks for the kingdom of heaven, but we do not want to advocate for taking unnecessary risks. We will not be reckless with the lives of people entrusted into our care. Principle number 7, the terrain has changed, but the goalposts haven't. The greatest commandment, Jesus says, is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second is like it, to love your neighbour as yourself. The Great Commission, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. There are some things that COVID can't touch. Some things that won't change and haven't changed, and we should never seek to change. The goal of the church is still the same, to worship Jesus, to make disciples. It's just the landscape in which we are doing these things now looks very different. And so the most important question we are asking ourselves as a leadership right now is not how do we get back into our building, but rather what is the most effective way to disciple people in this season. Our primary concern is that you are growing in your walk with God. That is what matters most to us. So those are the principles that will guide our decisions. Now here's our decisions. I'm sure, like us, you can't wait to meet together again in person. Our first decision, however, is that we do not want to rush anything, but to make sure that we are making the best decision for the people entrusted into our care. As such, we will not be gathering in our building during July. We will revisit this again regularly and keep you informed. We want to ensure that any kind of decision to reopen will be based on the values and principles we've stated earlier. And we are not satisfied that by opening our building in July, we'll be able to ensure that this is the case. Other things we've decided. We've committed to transparent, accountable, and vulnerable communication. As such, we commit to keeping you informed, whether you are tech savvy or not. We want to ensure that you have all the information necessary. Secondly, The second commitment we make is to listen well during this season. We want to listen to the Holy Spirit, listen to the scriptures, and listen to one another. We are releasing a survey to all the church members to hear your concerns and questions around re-entering physical gatherings, as your thoughts and reflections really matter to us and will help us make better decisions in the long run. The final decision is an exciting one. With the loosening of restrictions, it means that we can now step up our pastoral care within the life of the church. It's been incredible to see how God has stirred us to care for one another during this season. I've been overwhelmed seeing the generosity and kindness of all of you during this time. We want to increase this further in this season. As such, we are looking to create some kind of visitation ministry over the summer where each person will have the opportunity for personal Bible study, communion, and prayer. More information will be coming on this shortly, but I am very excited about it. I just want to reassure you that while we've said that we won't regather physically yet, that doesn't mean that we aren't doing anything. Behind the scenes, we are working hard to prepare for the time when we will meet together in the building again. We've already submitted a risk assessment to Elim HQ, which will now be checked and analysed thoroughly to ensure that we've not missed anything. We are also looking at how we can continue online ministry as we begin to re-enter physical gatherings so that no one is left behind. Some final thoughts. I want you to think about what you can do during this season. First of all, I would ask for you to pray. Pray for wisdom, pray for the Holy Spirit to guide us, pray that we would make the best decision for the future health of the church here in Glossop. Second, I want to ask for your patience. Paul's first description of love in 1 Corinthians 13 is that love is patient. What the leadership of our church needs right now is for your patience to lovingly and prayerfully wait for the right time to gather together physically. Thirdly, to take personal responsibility. We need you to take care of yourselves emotionally. Care for your mental health. Phone someone if you're struggling. Don't go through it alone. We need you to care for yourself physically. Don't let bad habits creep into your life that's going to increase apathy and lethargy and unhealthiness. We need you to care for yourself spiritually. We need you to take personal responsibility for your relationship with Jesus, to pray, to meditate on the scriptures, to minister to those around you. And fourthly, we need you to continue to participate. I've been so encouraged by how connected we've been even in such an isolating time. We need you to keep connecting with our online gatherings. Fill out the survey so we can hear your voice. Pray regularly for the church and for one another. Phone one another up. Listen to one another and pray for one another. We need to get through this season and this moment together. And that requires that each of us play our part. Just want to say, love you all, and I'm praying that we will make the best decisions that honour God and love you and care for you in this season. God bless you all, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.